I think you really hit the point earlier when you said, Daniel, like, I wish we had researched a little bit more. Welcome to Backwoods Obsessions, the hunting podcast for everyone chasing game, big or small, in every season. Every week, we bring you affordable tips, practical hunting strategies, gear reviews, and conversations with expert guests who share knowledge you can trust without the hype. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode, and join a community that builds on the traditions of hunting and lives the hunt season after season. It's been a while since we posted our last podcast here, but we've all been getting out in the field, getting footage, getting on these hunts, and we wanted to get back to you and start reviewing some of the stuff that we've been doing here recently. Chad, you recently were out in Texas, my neck of the woods. You want to tell us a little bit about what you guys were doing?
Yeah. So me and two buddies of mine, Daniel here and another Daniel, we flew out to Breckenridge. We were there. We flew in on Monday, kind of checked into our Airbnb and stuff and got ready. We hunted Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then flew back out Friday morning. It was a good time. Like I said, the deer weren't really what we were expecting, just as far as quality and quantity, really, honestly. I mean, so the first morning, I seen no deer at all. I actually got a lot of footage of two horses. They enjoyed the feeder pretty well. Got down, had lunch, kind of regrouped, went back the afternoon. We were running a little bit late. So I just had them drop me at the gate, I'll walk my way in. That way I don't have to drive in and drive up to the stand and all. So
So this was a semi-guided hunt, right?
right, correct, correct. So they dropped me at the gate. I had probably maybe a quarter mile to the back. It was across a big pasture, down the edge of a wheat field. So I walked my way in there. Well, of course, by the time I got in there, I think it was about 3:30. It was getting dark around 6. So as soon as I rounded the corner, there was a doe standing, maybe 40 yards from me. So she, immediately went full alert, was staring at me. Um, so I froze, but it wasn't just a second. She took off, across the field, and here come deer, 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 deer. There was like 6 of them. Bunch of does come across the field, busted out. So I went ahead and got in the stand, and I sat there maybe an hour, hour and a half. Had two little yearling does come back in and feed. They were there for 20 or 30 minutes. That was it for the first day. That was all I seen in the stand was the two little does. Got back that night, just kind of hung out with the boys and all. Just sat around and shot the crap. Got up the next morning, went to a different spot. So the first day, I was on the same piece of property, but two different stands. The second day, I was on a completely different piece of property. The stand I went to that morning, I was maybe 400 yards from a protein and a corn feeder at the top of the hill. I had a little thing of mesquite trees come down. I was sitting on the fence line. So they told me the deer will usually feed there, filter out through the mesquite trees, and then come and hop the fence and leave. So sat there till 10 o'clock that morning. No deer. Didn't see a deer. So got down or, got out at lunch. We went, ate lunch, come back. They put me in a different stand for the second afternoon. So I was in the stand maybe an hour, and then I had some does start coming out. I could see them coming, filtering out through the mesquite trees. And I think it was like 4 does and a little button buck, or 5 does and a button buck. But man, they came out and they were like 6 feet from the box I was in. So I'm like trying to sit completely still because I got deer looking at both sides of my head, So I'm frozen in here, and I got my phone trying to like ease up by the window and film. So they fed around me for, I don't know, an hour, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And they kind of eventually fed off toward the feeder, and ended up, getting dark. They ended up coming back out. There was a big field behind it, a big kind of ag field. So they fed out in the field, and when the outfitter came to pick me back up, there was actually a buck standing. So he had to come straight down the road and then 90 degrees to where I was sitting. The feeder was at the end. So when he pulled in, the buck was standing behind the feeder across the fence, still in the woods. So he came on, got me out the stand and all. So he said, in the morning, we'll come back over here, see. He said, I couldn't tell how big of a buck he was, but He was a buck. So went back there to that same stand the next morning, and right, I mean, before shooting, like he dropped me off. There was a deer that we run off from the feeder when we got there. When I got there to get in the stand, so I got in. Moon was pretty bright, so I'm waiting. You know, he's probably been gone 30 minutes. I probably still got another 20 minutes till shooting light. So I could see a deer standing at the feeder, but I couldn't tell. You know, you can't tell anything. I could see him with my eyes though. So I waited and waited. And finally, I got just enough light I could start to make out different things. So, you know, pick my binos up and I checked him out and I looked and looked and he was just moving around. And I could never really get a good look at him. And I was like, man, you know. So he kept easing over and he's right on the fence line. I was waiting, man, just any time for him to just hop the fence and be gone. So I waited and waited, and finally it was light enough that I could shoot him. And he turned to walk back toward the feeder, and I could see that he was enough horns that he was gonna do for my last day. So I went ahead and let one fly, and that was that on Texas for me. Well, I lied. I went the last afternoon to a different stand that actually the other Daniel had been sitting in, and he said, you know, you've been seeing a bunch of deer over there, a bunch of does, smaller bucks. So I was like, well, I don't really feel like cleaning a deer, but if a doe comes out, I might try to head shoot one, you know. So, man, about 20 minutes before dark, I look up and here come a big football head doe. She come walking out, and I guess they're probably about 250 yards maybe. And she was walking, walking, and she hit one open, and I had a perfect, clear shot at her. And she stopped and just stood still, dead still. And I was like, well, I'm going to try it. So I put it right about the top of her ear, let it fly, and she bounced out there about 40 yards and stopped and turned around and looked, was looking around, and I was like, well, I just watched her. I watched her probably another 20 minutes, and I got on down and walked my way out. But it was a fun. It was a blast. Like I said, you know, the quality deer, I didn't kill as big of a buck as I originally hoped to kill. But I mean, that's hunting. That's you know,
How big was he?
body wise, he probably would have went around 150 pounds, 100, maybe somewhere 150, 160 pounds. Horn wise, he probably won't break 120, but he was an 8 point. I mean, he was a decent 8 point.
He's going to taste all the same, right?
That's for here. That's a decent, you know, that's a good buck for here. You know, 120 inches is good. So
Yeah, but you came to Texas, so this is
right, right. Well, if I was from Texas, I probably would have been real disappointed in what I went home with. But for me, you know,
there you go.
I'm not gonna complain. At the end of the
Hey,
day, I'm on a week-long hunting trip.
you
You
harvested
know,
something, you had a good time, right?
I didn't have to go to work. I got to hang out and laugh and
There you go. So I'm sure people want to know, what did you shoot him with?
so I took my Savage Lightweight Hunter 7mm 08.
1mm 08 flies fast and true. That's for
Yep,
sure.
that's actually the first deer I've shot with that rifle. I was going to take my 260. Actually, me and Daniel, he loads ammo, so we got together because I couldn't get it to shoot. You know, more than about. I guess probably 3 MOA is about the best I could do with it.
Well, that's good to know, Daniel. I got a bunch of 5-gallon buckets full of empty brass. If you want it, it's yours.
There you go. We loaded some rounds for it and finally got one. So it's probably shooting about half MOA at 100s.
Hey,
But I didn't. I took the 708 because it's a little bigger bullet. 150 grain. I'm shooting the. Hold on, I got the box right here somewhere. The Hornady. What are they?
those Hornady red tips.
The Precision Hunters.
Yep, the black box.
Yeah, the ELDXs. Yeah, that
Yep.
was it.
Yeah, those are good bullets.
And the little short barrel on this rifle, they're a little slower, probably 2,500 something. But I mean, 100 yards.
The end result's the same. And
Yeah,
that's part of the thing
that
about hunting,
deer,
right?
he couldn't handle it. I mean, so
Yeah, I think that's a lot of guys. If you watch a lot of YouTube videos on the internet, right? There's a ton of YouTube videos about bullets, and they do comparison shots in the ballistic gel, and that people are buying pork hams and stacking them up and showing wound channels and all this. Like,
they do all kinds of stuff.
in the end, does the deer die?
Right.
Is the result a dead deer at the end? We
Yeah.
have to get to that kind of microscopic view of the ballistics. Now, I suppose when you are looking at things like extreme long, ELR type shooting, or you
Right.
are on
Long
big,
range or
you got it.
heavy, thick skin, like elk or something with real dense muscle. I can see where
You got it.
you
But if you're
want more.
300 yards and in,
Yeah, for a whitetail, for me, so the other guy that went with us, he's shooting a 7 PRC.
okay,
He got it. I think, he just got it like last year. So he wanted to take it and shoot a couple deer with it and just so both deer he shot actually ran a little ways. I think one of them, only went 20 or 30 yards, but one of them I think went 75 or so yards, which some of probably was shot placement. But yeah, for the Magnum stuff, it's intriguing. It's everybody wants big and powerful and stuff like that, which is fine if you're gonna shoot a long ways. But for me, man, most of my stuff is less than 100 yards. So I like my short actions. I always have. 308, 7 millimeter 8, 6.5 Creedmoor. I love my Creedmoor.
well, and I know JW, you and I have talked about this. It's not so much about the bullet and the caliber. It's what you shoot well. Can you place that
Right,
bullet in the vital, right?
right.
Is that
Whatever you can comfortably shoot without.
if it's a 243 Winchester, fine, shoot it. If it's a 7 PRC, great.
Yeah.
If you got to be Mr. Macho Man and have a 300 Win Mag or something like that, then more power to you. You're probably going to have ground meat at the end of the day, but more power to you.
Yeah, I think that's just one of those things, to each his own. I don't knock anybody for whatever, but for me, I don't want the big Magnum flinch. I don't, I just don't need it. Like I don't.
I shoot a 308 for basically everything. It's easy ammunition to find. It's
Yeah,
fairly inexpensive across the board. I've got a Sauer and Son Classic 100, which is their entry level, gun, but it's a German. It's a tack driver. I know when I shoot it, that bullet is going to end up where I aimed. I've only had to go up in caliber once, and that was for a bison, and I had to go to my 45-70 for that, and I had to shoot that animal twice. So
yeah. And another thing, back on that is bullet choice is a big factor. I mean, you can take a 7 millimeter 8 and shoot pretty much what you want, as long as you limit your distance to reasonable distance. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't take a solid copper bullet or something and shoot elk and get plenty of penetration, right? But for deer, shooting a solid copper bullet is fine, but I don't like my bullets to exit. I want my bullet to stay. I want to dump as much as I can on a whitetail, thin skinned light game. I like the VLDs. I like the fragmenting bullets. I just have good luck with them. The older I get, I don't like to track my deer, especially if I shoot it with a rifle. I want my deer to fall where I shoot it.
yeah.
So I like neck shots. I like exploding bullets, the whole night. So, but if I was to go elk hunting, obviously I would redo my setup. But
We could do a whole episode on neck shots. We might have to do that because I'm sure there's some
See,
controversy around that.
I'm just the opposite. I want my bullet to go all the way through.
yeah,
That's why I
I
shoot that's why I shoot big grain bullets.
Yeah. And that, to each his own. Like I said, everybody's got their reasons why they like what they like. For me, I like that bang flop. If I have to lose a little bit of meat in order to make it where I'm sure that the deer is going to be there, unless it's a doe, I'll try to neck shoot or head shooter. But if it's a big nasty buck and, I'm going for front shoulders, I'm doing as much damage inside of him as I can do.
Yeah, it's and Daniel, I want to get to here in a second, but yeah, Chad, you ever do like a high shoulder shot? You hear those guys that are trying to go for that nerve plexus or whatever.
About center shoulder. I don't really go way high. I try to stay about center without getting too low. Because I mean, if you get too low, then they'll still take off on you. But yeah, about midway is just where I can try to get around where I think that spine is. Because I'll be honest, once you start looking at like deer anatomy and stuff, the spine is actually a little lower in the deer than you would imagine it is. And actually, the one that I shot in Texas, so he was quartered to me, and he was looking straight at me. So the only good shot I had was about between his neck and his front shoulder here, about center of body. So when I shot him, it hit the shoulder blade and actually turned up and came through and was lodged and went through the back strap on the off side and was lodged just under the skin. So it actually broke his spine. Like he was actually paralyzed. He was actually still alive when I got down to him. You know, he expired pretty quick after that. But yeah, he was flopping around a little bit. But you know, if you hit him where it takes that spine out, they can't really go anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. You know, I mean, it's about accuracy and your placement, right?
Right, right, and confidence. I mean, you know, the more that you shoot and kind of learn what you like and what you don't like, and how your bullets perform, because you know, shooting different bullets, your placement is a little different on where. So
That's right. Practice with the bullets you're going to use the day of.
right, just get comfortable with your equipment. You know what I mean? I try not to. My goal is, no matter whether it's bow or gun or anything else, when I go out, if I miss or I make a bad shot, I want to know 100% that it's my fault. I did it. I'll never guess my equipment because I know that it's good when I go. I try to make sure that my equipment's up to par.
Well, don't worry about that. I mean, we will razz you mercilessly if you miss, and don't. I mean, don't.
It does happen.
We will ridicule you to no end until you're in tears. So don't worry about that.
I can promise you're gonna, especially if you go duck hunting with me, you'll see it.
That's coming up.
Just don't be missing when we go on an elk hunt.
Yeah, just remember, when I'm in the blind next to you, don't go too far over. That's all I ask.
Yeah, no, I've never shot anybody, so I've got a good streak going there.
Good deal. Good deal. So, Daniel, welcome to the show. This is your first time with us.
This is my first time.
Yeah. So you were on this hunt with Chad, but you were on a different property, right?
Yeah, I was probably 20, 25, 30 minutes away from where they were at.
Okay.
I didn't really have a shortage of deer. I mean, I seen, I don't know, probably 30, 35, 40 deer a sit. I mean, I filmed, I got video of 15, 20 deer at one time down the road.
Like a good mix of bucks, like, because it sounded like Chad had mostly does for the majority of it, right?
No, most of mine. I mean, I had probably 10 or 12 rack bucks a day. I mean, just 8 to 10 rack bucks a day. I had the bigger 4 points. I had a few of the cowhorn spikes. I had a mix of does in there. I had hogs in there a couple of days. Just the caliber of deer that I was looking to take in Texas just never came. I had one buck come, I think it was on my third day, if I believe. I had one come one day. He would have been 140, but he was broke off on one side. I mean, he literally come up to the high guard and was broke at the high guard. But I mean, he was probably 20, 21 inches tall. I mean, he was a brute for what I've seen out there. But he was broke off at the one high guard. I mean, he come probably 11 steps. I got him on video from coming from the feeder all the way up 11 steps of the blind and then walking down, getting in the mix of a mingle of probably 15, 16 does. Like I said, once I realized he was broke off at the high guard, I just went to filming and pretty much sat down and filmed everything.
Now, you were traveling from Georgia, right? So when you came here, you said where I was looking for something specific. What was the goal? What did you think you were going to be able to get?
I wanted in the 140. 140 is the 140 plus. I didn't have to be mainframe, and I would have took the trash. I like the trash and the stickers, and I wanted to look like he's got an oak tree hanging off of his head. Chad's more of a typical.
I'm more of a typical guy.
Typical mainframe, and I want something like your ugly stepsister. I want stuff everywhere.
Got on that. So that just.
I mean, it really was. I mean, it was great. It was a great time. Like I said, I never pulled the trigger. I never got to shoot anything that I wanted, but
yeah,
the camaraderie, the getaway, the everything like that was a great time.
So you didn't harvest anything?
I did not know.
And then you guys had one other Daniel with you on this trip. Is that right?
Yep,
we did.
He's also here in Townsend with us. We all grew up together.
How did he do? Can you get it? Since we didn't have him on the cast tonight, but if
he killed a younger 9-point on I think the first day, right? The first morning, or maybe it was the first afternoon. It was on the first day, I believe.
So let me ask you.
First afternoon.
Yeah, and then I think he shot the 9-point and then a doe.
Yep.
And I think he was trying to shoot hogs after that, but I don't think they ever had anything come close enough or stay long enough to shoot.
Gotcha. I wanted to ask you guys. So, JW and I have recently had an opportunity to talk to a group of other gentlemen, other hunters that have had varying experiences with outfitters. and they're looking at potentially doing some sort of review site or something of that nature. Do you guys feel like when you book this hunt with this outfit, and you don't have to say any names, so I don't want you throwing anybody under the bus or anything like that. Do you feel that you got what they marketed to you, or do you kind of feel like, this wasn't really what I expected?
So I think I was probably in contact with the outfitter more than any of the other two guys were. And I had been getting a few trail cam pictures here and there, this deer, this deer, this deer. But it kind of seemed like once we got there, the deer that I had been getting the trail cam pictures of, they had already been killed. I mean, I was now looking at pictures of where somebody else had already taken these deer. And I mean, like I said, I know we were on different ranches, but like I said, that was the biggest thing is, 6 or 7 of the deer that I seen that were, on the hoof at the feeders, that would have been really good, 140, 150, even 160, 100, I think it was 161-inch deer. That was kind of the caliber of deer we was expecting because that's the deer we were getting pictures of. We went in, the first week of December after the rut was pretty much over with. And then once we got there, we got the pictures of, hey, John Doe killed this 145-inch deer. John Doe killed this 160-inch deer. So pretty much all the trophy deer that we had been seeing before the pre-hunt, they were already harvested, by the time we got there. And I mean, I'm not going to say it was a learning experience. I'm not going to say it was done on purpose. I think looking back at it now, I wish we would have kind of done some more research. And I wish we would have changed our dates to more of in the rut time versus when we came. Because I mean, all these deer were killed 2 weeks before we got there.
But do you feel like you was misled a little bit?
I would say so a little bit, yeah. So the guy that I actually hunted with was the outfitter that we got hooked up with. He took Chad and Daniel, and I don't know if he had any more tags or when he bought like the landowner tags or however he done that. But he put me on a completely different outfitter's ranch. I went every morning. I met with this other outfitter. We got on his side by side. We went and corned the lanes. He put me in the stand. I went to a whole completely different outfitter that was pretty much subcontracted by the first outfitter type of deal.
Really?
So Dan,
I don't think I've ever
was more on like a legit hunting ranch, whereas me and the other Daniel were on people's property that hunt and have feeders and stands set up.
Okay.
They're not like a hunting ranch.
Right.
I sit on probably 880 acres, and I mean this outfitter, he probably had close to $75,000 in blinds. Every blind I sat in was either a Ranch King, the Redneck blinds. I mean, we're talking about propane heaters in all of them, fans in most of them,
Satellite TV, bathrooms. Yeah,
I mean, he run corn feeder, 1 to 2 corn feeders at every blind. He run protein feeders out of the side of the blind where you couldn't hunt over the protein feeders, but I mean, he had nice side-by-side trails going to everything, nice blinds. I mean, that was pretty much what I gathered. He said, you should have been here 2 weeks ago. He said, if you want to come back next year, you need to come between these dates and these dates because this is when we kill our. He had high fence on 2 sides. 2 sides of his property was high fenced. Matter of fact, my last day, I sat in a Ranch King blind, and I could look over into the high fence, which would just make you sick. And I mean, that was the thing. He had his deer pattern. He knew exactly what deer he had coming to what cameras, and he knew exactly what deer he had on his ranch. And that was the biggest thing, is the deer that he wanted to take off of his ranch were taken prior to us getting there. He said, he still had 4 or 5 that was unaccounted for that could have been killed on a neighbor ranch or could have been hit by a car or whatever, but there was still a chance of some of them coming. And there was 2 good bucks that showed up on camera while I was there at nighttime, but they never surfaced during the day. And
yeah, actually, I think that's where excuse me. I think that's where I take a little bit of I don't want to say offense, but I would have expected more out of that outfitter, right? Because if he actually told you, I wish you were here 2 weeks earlier, because that's when we normally kill all our big bucks. Well, how are you setting expectations when you're booking people, right? Because I on this podcast especially, we've talked about, this is about us building family traditions, passing things along, building great experiences, and we're all working guys, right? We all have regular jobs, and it takes time away from family. It takes time to build up the ability to leave work. It takes, us time to build up the funds to be able to do this. This is not a cheap hobby by any means, right? To have the equipment and just to have the privilege to trespass on these people's properties and harvest these animals. But for them not to set that expectation, say, hey, just so you know, we've already kind of hit all our big bucks, but this is what we're seeing we got left in the last few weeks of the season. I would have respected that more, that outfitter, so that I knew what I was getting. Because you guys are coming all the way from Georgia. That's a lot.
And when we got there, they pulled up in the driveway the day that we, were unloading our stuff and all, and showed us a rack off of a deer. I mean, it was like 166 or something like that.
163 and 7/8.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now we're like,
we're in the right spot.
Yeah, we're in for this. Like,
right. And then you get
you think they'd done that a time or two though?
And that was
yeah.
The outfitter that we went to, he was so straight up, and the hospitality was great. He was straight up. He was honest. I would definitely go back. I had never even met this guy until we got out there and met our outfitter, and he said, "Hey, look, I'm gonna send you over here. You need to go to see this guy." He said he's gonna call you with his address. This other guy that I've never even talked to, never met, never done anything with, he sent me his home address, and 45 minutes later, I pulled up at his house. I would definitely go back to the guy that I went through, just because, like I said, the hospitality, the honesty, and it wasn't his fault because I didn't book with him. I booked with guy A who sent me to him. You know what I mean? And that's a harder thing to do too when you go on a 3-day hunt. A lot can happen in 3 days. A 3-day hunt's not enough time. You get a couple days, a little bit of bad weather, you get a moon phase or something like that, and your hunt's done for on a 3-day hunt. But like I said, the guy that I was with, I can't say anything bad about. I would go back to the guy that I went with versus, I think, the other guy that we initially set up with. Just because, like Chad said, it was kind of more of like hunting with your buddies versus what to be expected.
For me, it felt like we were guessing more than, you know what I mean? Which is fine. Like, I get it. It's hunting. But when we're paying a premium for hunting, it's, I just expect a little more. Like, I can come here and see, 5 does in the afternoon or kill a 115-inch deer. But, I don't know. I guess it's, it's kind of easy for outfitters to get by with stuff like this because people know, Texas got big deer. Texas. So it's easier for them to sell it, hey,
Right.
come hunting here. I got some deer. Like, yeah, come on.
Right.
So,
well, I think it depends on the kind of hunting you're trying to do, right? So
yeah.
there are guys that come to Texas, and Texas is what, 98-99% privately owned land ranches, right? And most of them are high fence. And so these are bred animals. They're familiar with feeders. They kind of hear the dinner bell going off when the corn spreader hits, right? And you got guys that are shooting them at 100 yards or less at the feeder. But if you're coming a long distance and you're looking to get away from it and you're looking to harvest an animal and take your shot, can you actually make the shot? But you're kind of guaranteed that opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, you're paying for that premium, right? And that's okay too, right? Because you're going to go home with that meat. You're going to go home with that trophy.
I don't need him to guarantee me that 140 is going to walk up to this feeder at 8 o'clock and start eating. I just need there to be a 140 somewhere around that I can have a chance to.
You have an opportunity.
Right. If I can have an opportunity, that's all I ask. If I mess that up, that's on me. I can swallow that.
But when you show up and they say they killed all the opportunities 2 weeks before you got there,
right?
It's a little disheartening.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to swallow, right?
And there was 4 deer on camera that we had the night that I got there. And actually they showed back up on camera my second night. They come in at like 1:30 in between, I think 12:30 and 1:30 in the morning. One of those deer would have probably went 145-ish. One of those deer would have been high 130s, and the other would have probably been a good high 120. I mean, I can kill a good high 120. I mean, I think that I got Chad set up on a deer earlier this season here in Georgia, and that deer probably goes close to what was that 12, 11 points? 125 probably, Chad?
Yeah, probably around one. Yeah, I was going to say around maybe 115, 120.
So I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, where we're at here, I mean, we don't have big deer like Texas deer, but a 125 deer doesn't impress me in Texas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I live in Texas, and no, it doesn't impress me in the least, right?
And I mean,
we call that a meat hunt.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I've got probably 30 minutes of videos of 125-inch 8-point, probably 120, 125-inch 8-point, and it wasn't what I was it wasn't what I was wanting out of Texas. I mean, I literally didn't even look at the gun. I picked up the phone and just went to filming, watched him chase some does, watched him go to the feeder, watched him come back through the mesquite trees. One point in time, I even picked my grunt call up and played with him a little bit just to, when he would look the other way, I would grunt to make him see what he would do. It just wasn't what I was. I mean, I had a great time. I can't take that from the trip at all.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Well, you know, it's
It
the
was a
overall
lot.
experience, right? It's hanging out with your buddies. It's, you know, getting away from it all, right?
We laughed harder the first day than I've laughed in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, I think, you know, again, I think you really hit the point earlier when you said, Daniel, like, I wish we had researched a little bit more, right? So I think, you know, if guys know exactly what they're trying to accomplish, there are hunts out there and there are outfitters that will specialize to what you're looking for, whether you just want an easy shot at 100 paces, or, you know, someone to tie the deer to the tree for you so that it can't get away, or are you looking to walk and stalk on a, you know, 11,000 acre ranch? You know, that's all doable out here. You want exotics, you want, you know, 200 plus SCI deer. I mean, they got them, but you're going to pay for them, right? And I think it all depends on what you're looking for. If you're the kind of hunter that wants the experience of calling them in and having that interaction, you know, like JW and I, we love our turkey hunt. Like, we love to call those turkeys in and shoot them, you know, once we get them close enough, right? Same thing with deer, right? It all depends on what the experience that you're looking for is, at least in my opinion. But I don't know how you feel. But, you know, I'd love for you to come back, because I think we could definitely get you on that deer that you're looking for, man.
And
They're here.
that was the thing too. Like I said, I mean, I won't call any names or anything, but I mean, we paid $3,000 for a 3-day hunt. We had to provide our own meals. We had to provide our own lodging.
I cleaned my deer.
Yeah, I mean, the outfitter that I went to, he offered a 6-day hunt with lodging and with dinner for $4,500. So I mean, and he was a lot more set up. I mean, he had a target range at his house. You could shoot your sight, check your rifles. I mean, it was so much more. It'd been so much more if we would have knew about, you know, and B instead of the guy we went with.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things, I guess, when, you know, you start first trying to get into the out of state hunting and stuff, you don't really know where to start. You know what I mean? You don't really know where to even begin looking.
Well, that's right. I mean, you know, Wyoming hunting versus Montana versus Colorado, Texas, Georgia, Florida. I mean, everywhere you go, it's going to be different, right? And that's why I think what you said there, Daniel, earlier, about knowing what you're getting yourself into is really a poignant and important point, right? You got that way, you're just not disappointed in the end, because you know what you've gotten yourself into, right? And not that you guys got yourself into anything bad. It sounds like it was a great time, and you guys,
yeah.
You know, I mean, I love laughing at Chad all the time. So I mean,
you just wait, you hadn't seen nothing. I'm real mild on here.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting for this duck hunt. It's going to be a lot, but
I think Chad were partners for a year together. So
what partners? I'm sorry.
Me and Chad we were work partners for a year together. We worked hand in hand every day.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
I can tell you stories that can't go on here that you will be crying laughing at.
I'm sure there were many calls
and it's
for,
all
for
bail
money
for the most part.
Oh shoot, that's awesome.
Pure pain and agony.
Well, hey JW, you actually got a chance here to do a little hunting with your son not too long ago, right?
Yeah, we slipped out the back of the house back here, and I've been watching a big hog on camera, and he hadn't got the opportunity to kill him one yet. You know, we went back there a couple of days and seen everything but the hog, and of course 1 or 2 or 4 of those 120s walked out, but he never could get his scope. I told him I was going to throw him out of the stand if he didn't, if he wasn't going to pull the trigger on one of these things. Because
that's a father's love right there.
we had 4 different, I know, 120, 125s in front of us 3 days in a row, and that little old boy could not get that scope on that deer for nothing. So we went back. I pretty much knew what time the hogs were going to be in there, and we went in there early one morning and got set up, and that hog come in, big bore. He stayed in there for about an hour, and I had one hole about like this for that hog to get in, and I told him, I said, get the gun up and look right through that hole right there and work it until you can get your eye on that red dot and on that tree that's in that hole. And he finally got it in there. And I told him, I said, don't move it. That little fella held that thing there for, I know, 30 minutes.
Arms are shaking.
Well, I had it laid. We were up in the stand, and so my stands are pretty high. They're about 30 feet. And I put him a brace in there. I made him a brace, and so I got the, he looked over at me and told me that his arm was hurting a couple of times, and so I'd reach over and hold the gun, and he'd shake his arm out, and that hog finally. So he come out at about 10 minutes after 8, and at 9:15 he finally went into that hole, and we're talking maybe 6-7 feet. And so he finally got in that hole, and he said, you want me to shoot him? And I said, put that red dot right behind his front shoulder. And I said, you squeeze the trigger. And he goes, now? And I said, are you on him? And he said, yeah. I said, right behind his shoulder. He said, yeah. I said, squeeze the trigger. He squeezed the trigger, and I mean, that son of a gun just dropped.
Nice.
And
it was a big hog. That was not little by any means.
Yeah, 320 pounds.
He had a few pork chops off of it.
4.5 inch cutters. So, I mean, for an 8-year-old, I mean, that's a big hog, and that was his first one.
Heck yeah, those are some good memories with Dad, is what it is.
Yeah, and I got it all on video. I mean, and you
didn't even get tossed out of the stand, so I mean, that's good.
No, he didn't get tossed out of the stand. That's but yeah, he had a really good experience. I mean, that was his first time, killing a hog, and so he's anxious to get on here and talk about it, So
yeah. But, I think what we'll do is we'll throw up a couple of teaser photos of because my son got to get a fallow deer not too long ago either, and we'll throw some teaser photos up there. So when we get to our interview with the boys, people can see a little prequel of what's to come.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Your boy got to kill something too.
He sure did. Originally we went black buck hunting, and we were on some pretty big ranches out in South Texas, and that was the original intent. He swore up and down, and I mean, we talked about this for months. He swore up and down. He wanted that black buck with those specific antlers on there because he wanted that in his room. All right, Dad's going to make that happen. He had 15, 20 opportunities to pull that damn trigger on beautiful black bucks, and he never did. I don't know if he was just nervous because it was, the sight of seeing, these beautiful animals. He just never got it to that point. And so we were talking, and I said, well, buddy, we got other animals on this property. I mean, if you want to try for something else, I'm okay with that. If you want to stop, I'm okay with that too. This is just about us spending time together, right? And I swear, about 250 yards away out of the tree line walks a fallow with a trophy set of beautiful palm antlers, on here. And he goes, well, can I take that one? And now at the ranch we were at, the guide had to be with us. It was the landowner's requirement that we were always accompanied on the property. And I leaned over and I'm like, is that in the budget? Is like we were saying earlier, this stuff costs some good chunk of change, right? And he goes, yeah, we'll make it happen. Like, we'll make it happen, or it's in my budget. You're good. He swore up and down. So I said, all right, buddy, when you're comfortable, you take the shot. We'll talk you through it. And sure enough, like you, he can't just sit there and hold that gun for any length of time. So I had him on a pair of shooting sticks, inside the blind there. And he pulled that trigger, and boom, that sucker went down, and it walked for, I don't know, maybe 10 yards, but then he fell over and expired, and he was just as happy as can be. So we'll throw a picture of that up there, and when we talk about it, we'll interview the boys on their experiences here, because that just made his trip, and That same trip, I got an opportunity to hunt some other properties and take a Pierre David bull and an Addicts while I was at it. So we left with 150 quart coolers full of animal. That was a lot to process at home. I have some very full freezers. Looking forward to sharing that meat with a lot of good people. So, yeah, it was good times. How you have to see it over.
Having those youngins out there, man, that's what makes it. I mean, that I got to video it.
Yeah.
And watch his expression. When he shot it
Yeah.
and it went down, he said, "Do I need to shoot it again?" I said, "No, we don't need to shoot it a second time."
Well, speaking of that, I got it on video too, and when we were originally doing the black bucks, I got video of the outfitter guy going, just the look on his face, like, "Are you gonna pull the trigger?" It's a clear broadside shot. You want to pull that trigger? So you can just kind of go, God.
Mine. So my youngin had been shooting a 22 Magnum, right, and that's all he'd really been shooting. Well, I moved him up to the 5.57, right, but he wanted to come out here. He wanted to put his earphones on and his earplugs, and I'm like, no. We're not hunting. We're not hunting with earphones. And I told him, I said, if you're going to shoot this thing, I said, you're going to have to shoot it. So I literally ordered this sight on this red dot and put it on, and we went out, and it's dark, and I'm trying to get this thing sighted in. And I told him, I said, you hold the light. I said, I'm going to have to make about 3 or 4 shots on this thing to get this thing dialed in. I bore sighted it first. And so he was standing there holding that light, and I cracked that shot off me. It's like, oh my God. And I told him, I said, you're going to shoot this thing, if you're going to hunt, you're going to shoot this thing just without that. And so, he did. And, but I was very skeptical if he was actually going to pull the trigger on this hog or not, but he didn't really hesitate. He said he had it on there, and he squeezed it off, and then wanted to know if he needed to shoot him a second time, so he's good now, he ain't got to worry about it. We've been back a couple of times, and I asked him, I told him, I said, go in there and get the rifle, and he goes and gets it, brings it out of there. I said, you good with it? Oh yeah, let's go.
Well, we like you, we had to practice for a while. His original gun, all the kids started with 22s. Just every kid starts with a 22, right? It's just the way you start. But then he moved up to a 243. He took his first hog with a 243 Winchester. This time around, like you, Chad, he was using a 7mm 08.
Good round.
That's right. And that's all it took, right?
The problem with my youngin is he's 8 years old, but he don't weigh 50 pounds hardly. I mean, is a little bitty thing. I mean, just a little bitty fella. I've got a couple other ones, but I figured that 5.57 was going to be the easiest thing for him to move to next, and so, and I'm shooting some real hot loads out of that thing. So, that helps a little bit, but it surprised me. I mean, that hog dropped right where he was. I mean, it was, he put it right, a little bit high, but right where it needed to be. I mean, it got his spine and everything. So,
that's the way to do it.
Couldn't complain. I was happy as could be.
Well, and that's the thing is, getting the time to spend with the kids is awesome, right? And then the preparatory time, right? It's like taking them out to the range, letting them practice, letting them get used to it, teaching them how to hold the breath and squeeze the trigger and do all the bad habits that dad still has in him that he's trying to pass on to his kids because he can't do any better. But it's just that quality time of tradition, right? And teaching them where their food comes from, being able to talk without an iPad in front of them or a computer or cell phone or whatever. And it's bringing it back to where it used to be, right? And I think getting back to traditional values and things of that is important, especially in today's age of everything's AI. And I work for a major tech company, and we do a lot of AI stuff. So I mean, being able to break away from that and get back to nature and experience what God has put on this earth for us to be a part of, I think is really important.
I have a son who's 13, and that's his Christmas gift this year. He wanted a hunting trip. So here in the next 2 weeks, we're heading to South Florida to go shoot iguanas with air guns.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's awesome.
That's what he wanted. That's what he wanted for Christmas. So we done some wheeling and dealing and made it happen. So next few weeks, we're gonna head down to South Florida and snipe some iguanas with an air gun for him for his Christmas present.
That's awesome. All right, so Dan, my son's birthday is December 18th, right? So he's always looking for his birthday present and a whole bunch of Christmas presents at the same time. Typically, we do a hog hunt every year for his birthday. You and your son come out and you guys go hog hunting with us. How about that next year?
All right.
We'll make it happen. Chad, you too.
I'm down. I'm always down.
Let's do
You
it.
asked Chad. My 13-year-old hunts more than most grown men.
Yeah. Yeah. He gets after it.
Okay, well maybe not. He might make me look bad. So let's not do that.
Yeah, he'll hunt more days in a row than I will. I'll tell you that.
Sure. Well, it sounds like Dad makes it a priority in his life to get that opportunity, right? So
You got to keep them out there.
Chad, you're a little busy, putting food on the table and making a living. So I think you got
well,
it.
my little boy killed his first deer this year, and I'll be honest, I don't think it's not clicking for him yet. He was like, "Yeah, I might go again with you next year." I was like, "Okay, well, that's fine. It's not for everybody." Well, I took him and let him try it. He had fun, while we were doing it. He just, I don't think he's quite there. He's 7, so I don't think he's quite.
That's fair, right? That's fair.
So, and that's one of those things I told him. Whenever you get ready to go, you let me know. I'll take you with me. Until then, I'm not gonna make you do any of it.
Well, you know what I heard out of that whole statement there, Chad, was it wasn't about the deer and it wasn't about the hunt. It was about the time with you.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the important
part. Right. I've got him hooked right now. We've been running coon traps right here by the house. So every day when we get home from school, he's like, "Where's my flashlight, Dad? Grab the 22. Let's go. Hurry up." I'm like, all right, we're going.
That works.
And that's the big thing too. When they're at that age, you take for granted the time you get to hunt. Once they get older, they want to hunt by themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, mine's at the age now where he, Dad, you go on down there, and I'm gonna go in here and take my climber and go in here.
They're like, "Nah, dude, I'm going with you." Nah.
Yeah. I want to call the tree right next to you, Bubba. Like me and you hunt together. He's like, "No, you go on down there, and I'm gonna go in here." I'm like, "God." You take for granted that time that you actually get to hunt with them, and you don't want to rush them off on their own too quick because there's a time they get where they don't want to hunt with you as they get older.
I got an 8-year-old daughter, and right now she's at the stage where she loves her 22 LR. We tried to move her up. It was probably just a little too soon. It was a little too much for her. She'll get there, but she's the kind of girl that, to hell with you, Dad. I'm going to hop in your F-250. I'm going to drive off and go to the range without you. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to how she kind of grows and progresses with all this, because now she's like, I just want to go shoot a whole bunch of rabbits and squirrels and stuff like. That's my girl. Let's go put some food on the table. Looking forward to it. So, well, I think, guys, this is a good place to wrap it up. Hey, Daniel, I appreciate you being here with us. I'm looking forward to having you on the show with us a lot more often. Chad, guys, it sounds like you had a fun trip.
Oh yeah, before we even made it back, we're planning the next one. So we're, it's on now. Now that we kind of got our ropes and figured out some stuff, we'll, the out of state hunting, we'll definitely do it a little different. And I think we're gonna try to do. We obviously we'll try to do some paid hunts just for the, not, I don't want to say guarantee, but the chances.
Yeah.
But also I think we're gonna try to get together and do some more like DIY stuff. Go for a long weekend and find a random WMA and just take the 3 or 4 of us and go try to get some hunting and see what we can find.
Heck yeah.
Just start moving around a little bit.
Yeah.
I want a mule deer.
A mule deer?
I want a mule deer.
All right, man.
I think we all discussed our last night together in Texas that our next hunt needs to be a good mule deer hunt somewhere. So I think the mule deer is going to be on the menu next.
All right, we'll stop by my house. I'm not that far from the New Mexico border, so we'll hop across state lines here and we'll make that happen.
I thought my hunting hobby was unaffordable and unattainable before. It just jumped to a whole new level.
You got to do like everybody else, Chad, and go to work for yourself.
That's
right. By God, I guess so.
Or get that second and third job.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord. Well, I think a lot of this really just goes to show, to your point there, Chad, it's a learning journey, right? It's no one knows it all. You constantly are learning how to be better, how to be more efficient, how to experience the whole traditions of hunting, in better ways, and bringing family and friends and fellowship into the whole thing, right?
And that's the fun part.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, guys, I think we'll wrap it up. I think, this is Backwoods Obsessions. This is real talk for real hunters, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and make a comment down below. Have a good one.